True stories told by real people. I went to see a movie with a friend of mine. It was dark when we got out of the movie and she offered me a ride home, but it was a pretty short walk, nice night, and I live in a really safe town. Usually. So I start to walk home. I guess I should mention I'm a woman and a particularly small one. About 2 blocks into my walk, I hear yelling and screaming, or moaning. I look, and these 2 guys in hoodies are kicking something, but I can't see what because there is this short cement wall blocking my view. They shout something, not at me, and take off in the opposite direction. So I run to where they had been. That all happened very quickly. I get there, and there is this homeless man. It's really dark, but he's obviously hurt badly. He has a blanket. He was clearly sleeping when these guys came up and attacked him. I actually recognized him, not by name, but it's a small town, and I've seen him around. He gets up and grabs his blanket and looks around for a minute. I try to talk to him, but he just can't really talk to me. He's quite mentally ill and has now been hit in the head, and he's just terrified. He takes a couple steps as I'm calling 911 and ends up under a streetlight. His head and face are covered in blood, with some dirt caked over it, to the point I can't see any skin on his face. He's way too spooked to let me try to help. I'm explaining to 911 the situation, but mostly just begging for an ambulance. They want to know about the 2 guys, of course, but I didn't see them well, and I have this guy bleeding from his head in front of me. And then he starts walking. I have no way to stop him, so I just follow a little bit behind because I don't want to be an extra thing that terrifies him, but I also need to update 911 where we are. We made it like 8 blocks before the fire truck intercepted us. I am shocked he makes it that far. No one else is out. 911 keeps wanting me to give a more detailed description, which is the one point I lost it a little bit. He's the only guy covered in blood walking down street name. Sorry, 911 operator. I cannot describe how relieved I was when the fire truck showed up. The police talked to me for a little bit. Then they left. The guy had been transported and the fire truck was gone. All of a sudden, everyone was gone, and I was just standing there on an empty street in the dark.
Story 2. The Open Storm Sewer Pit.
I've got one. In college, I worked security for extra money. One of my regular assignments was the overnight shift at a metal fabrication factory. One of the primary reasons I was there was to ensure that no one broke in to steal all the valuable metal that was stocked on site, which was an occasional problem. That in turn involved checking the perimeter fence for damage at least once a shift. That couldn't be done effectively by camera. It instead required physically walking the fence. So it was that one night I was walking the perimeter fence in the middle of a thunderstorm. My attention was on the beam of my flashlight illuminating the fence as I walked past, so I wasn't really focused on where I was walking, despite walking through grass that was a bit over my waist. Apparently, I just stepped awkwardly on a patch of particularly slick grass or mud as I was heading downhill. But before I knew what was happening, I had slid feet first into an open storm sewer. Some asshole had stolen the manhole cover recently, and the edges around the opening were wet with rain and mud thanks to the storm. Let me just take a moment to explain this storm sewer. First off, it was shaped just like an oubliette. If you're not familiar with what that is, picture a concrete cell that is shaped like a jug, a small opening at the top with sides that slope inward to prevent someone from crawling out. In this case, the bottom was maybe 10 feet square, and the opening for the manhole was about twice the normal width in the center of the ceiling. There was no ladder attached, and the fall was maybe 20 feet down. At the bottom, the floor was sloped to form 2 trenches in the shape of a cross. There were sewer channels going off in 4 directions, but they were only maybe a foot wide across and were blocked with metal grates. At the bottom, there were debris, including a number of large broken pieces of rebar. There were several pieces that were pointing straight up. I definitely would have impaled myself on several jagged points of rusty metal had I hit the bottom. So no way to escape, a long fall, and a probable disabling injury at the bottom. I somehow caught myself by hooking the edge of the opening on my elbow as I fell in. I dropped my flashlight to the bottom of the pit before I stopped my momentum, so I had a great view of all that broken rebar below me while I was struggling to escape. Maybe that was the collapsed remains of the ladder. As I tried to get another handhold, my cell phone skipped out of my pocket and hit the bottom. It felt like forever before I somehow pulled myself out of that opening.
I don't doubt adrenaline gave me a considerable boost of strength, but even so, I nearly lost my hold on the edge 3 times before I managed to scramble out. I was kind of just jerking my knees towards the opening and jumping a couple inches thanks to the momentum. My free hand kept scrambling for something solid to grab, but I never really found anything. I'm honestly not sure how exactly I pulled myself out, just using the surface tension between the mud and concrete and my hands and forearm. It felt like a miracle. All I could think of after I pulled myself out was how I wasn't due to be relieved for another 7 hours. 7 hours before anyone would even start wondering where I was, and that whole time I might have been trapped at the bottom of a pit, impaled on some rods of rebar in the rain. I also wanted to kill whoever stole that manhole cover.
Edit, spelling. And yes, I did finish my shift after spending some quality time with a first aid kit and sewing some gashes in my uniform closed. I never did get my cell phone back though. Luckily, that was my company-issued one.
Story 3. Carbon monoxide whispers in the truck.
I once was woken up by someone saying my name, and no one was there. I found out later. It was a good thing. My boss just bought a little truck for my brother and I to use on occasion. We would load semi-trailers with pine seedlings that were boxed up. Now, it was mid-December in Georgia, and it had gotten to the 30s. We were told a trailer would be coming by to load at 6 a.m. Boss said it could be later, but to arrive early and just keep the truck running to stay warm, and even sleep till it got there. He would still count the time. Well, we get to the tree farm, which is 3 miles from the house, and nothing is there. So we hunkered down for some more sleep, with the truck on. I start getting super sleepy, and I fall asleep, and so does my older brother. I then start to hear faintly my name being called, and I try to answer, but I could barely move. My eyelids felt like they weighed a ton. All the while my name is getting called, kind of like when your mother wakes you in a loving way so as not to jostle you. I finally make a huge effort and open my eyes. The voice stops, and my body barely registers that I am demanding it to move. I finally got a hand on the door handle and opened the door. It took several attempts. I rolled out of the truck and just got on the ground on all fours, weakly, while leaning against the truck. It took a minute or two for my mind to finally clear some and gain some strength. I turned the truck off and began to wake my brother up. It took longer than usual, but he did wake up. I then told him to go ahead and get some air. I looked around, but no one there, except for us two. I began talking to him to tell him what happened, and apparently he had tried to crack a window open earlier, but I straight told him to close that effing window. I don't remember ever doing that, and told him so. I apologized for my outburst. The trailer showed up a little later, and we loaded it. It warmed up to the 60s, so we drove home slowly with the windows down, just to kill time. My boss later came and got the truck as he needed it elsewhere. A week passes by, and I ask him where it was. He tells me it was in the shop getting a new exhaust. As it turns out, there was an exhaust leak, and it was leaking into the truck cabin.
Story 4. The day I found my mother, Ted.
On April 18th of this year, I came home from work and began working on some homework. After 30 minutes of homework, my aunt entered my mother's bedroom and began screaming hysterically, ordering me to call 911. Once I was on the line with the operator, she asked what the nature of my emergency was. I didn't quite know, so I entered my mother's bedroom to find her dead of a heart attack and laying face down on the floor, wedged between her nightstand and her bed. The operator dispatched the paramedics and instructed me on how to perform CPR. In order to do so, I had to flip my mother onto her back. When I grabbed my mother's cold, lifeless arm, I realized that she couldn't be moved as she was wedged firmly between her bed and her nightstand, and rigor mortis had already set in. I was unable to flip her over, and I had never seen or touched a dead body before. After the paramedics came and told me that nothing could be done, the medical examiner informed my family that she couldn't be seen as she had been laying on her face for so long. It's assumed by my family that she hit her head on the way down, as her dentures were on the floor beside her. The combination of her head trauma and the fact that she had been dead for many hours had rendered her unviewable, as deemed by the officer from the medical examiner's office. To answer your question, the sight and feeling of my mother's deceased body is the most chilling thing that I have ever seen. Her memorial is this Sunday. Edit. I really appreciate the condolences and heartfelt messages you've sent me. I'm proud to have a great support network outside of the internet, full of people who have put themselves out there for me. I just started my move into my new home and will be sleeping there for the second time tonight. My new home is the spare bedroom of an old music teacher of mine. After his daughter and grandson moved out, I've been fortunate enough to be offered a room free of charge to live in. This is an amazing opportunity, especially for a college student whose job only offers 20 hours a week. I hope only to be able to repay him for what he and his wife have done for me.
Story 5. Knife in the Dark, Scottish Night.
At 15 years old, I was walking home with a friend along a long, dark street with nothing but woods and a small community center on the left side and a school and football pitches on the right. We had passed the community center and the pitches, and were now passing the hill leading to the trees on the left and the school on the right. The school has a main big building and a bike shed. Growing up, people would go drink there or hang out amongst other places, but you always knew the people who were there, so it was never an issue. As we walked past this one night, we heard voices. Then one voice shouting something along the lines of, "Here we go, guys, come on." Come on in Scottish slang is a common expression. All of a sudden, about 10 people have come out the shed and are charging across the grass to the fence of the school, which is the only thing between them and us. They get to the fence and spread out to jump over, some right at us, some behind, some ahead. There is nothing to do but stop. "Where you all off to, lads?" says one. "Aye, where you all off to?" says another. "Come on, get us into that party. You must know whose party it is, aye." Something was always on in the community center. It was a tiny thing, but it done karate classes, parties, etc. Tonight, it was a party. We had no choice. They guessed we were local and must know whoever's party it was and wanted us to go up with them and try and get in. Now, at this point, one of the group has recognized my friend, and the mood kind of went from hostile to neutral. He knew him. We're good. Fast forward, the guy guarding the door isn't letting us in. Surprise. So we are standing in almost a circle when one of the group walks up and stands near enough in my face. "Who are you and where are you from?" I tell him my name, etc., and he just looks at me, right through me almost. "Who are you, bud?" I sense the atmosphere change and trying to mumble something about being nobody to save confrontation. "I don't give a damn who you are, where you from, I'm gonna fucking..." One of his group jumped in right there. "Whoa, no, he's cool, man, he's cool, not him." It was then I saw it, the shimmer or light reflecting from the metal, and my heart sank. He was holding a blade about the size of my adult hand, pointing right in close against my stomach.
He turned to his friend, and they started arguing. My friend caught sight of it as well, and I mouthed, "Go now," with what had been the most haunting face, as the fear within me made me wonder if my legs were even capable of carrying me away from there. From some stroke of genius, he said, "I'm going to the toilet," and I agreed. We got to the corner of the building, which was about 2 meters away, and we ran. We ran faster than I've ever ran in my life. Without looking back, I knew he was chasing us, as I heard him shout he was going to rip us open. The only thing that saved us that night was that we knew the area better than him, and we cut through the gardens of the houses up the road. That and his friend, who somehow noticed what he was about to do. I found out who the guy was afterwards. He is currently serving time for multiple different crimes, including offensive weapons, theft, and drugs charges. My apologies if this was long, but it was hard to describe the whole scene otherwise.
Story 6. The Park Where the Killer Waited.
One more. I was in the Air Force stationed in Anchorage, Alaska, when we had a serial killer on the loose. Granted, we didn't know he was a serial killer at the time, since he would usually fly to like Texas, rent a car, drive to Wisconsin to murder someone, then drive to Illinois to fly back to Alaska. Israel Keys was the guy's name. Well, he ended up kidnapping and murdering a young woman in Anchorage, which led to his capture. Well, anyways, I lived in the dorms, and admittedly, I was a fat kid in high school and didn't get laid often, so I was like 20. When I was going to hook up with a chick that I didn't want to bring back to the dorms, I would go to this one park to fool around. It was big, and with the nights in the summer really just being dusk, it worked out well. Occasionally, a cop on patrol would stop by, tell us the park was closed or closing, or just check on us, and we would usually act like we were leaving. When the cop left, we would resume activities. Well, I only got stopped like 2 or 3 times, and it was all with the same chick. She was just into exhibitionism. Anyways, there was one time in particular we got stopped and told the park was closed or whatever, and the cops started to drive off. The girl looked at me and said, "I feel really uncomfortable, we should go." And I agreed, saying something didn't feel right. Well, years later, the girl gets kidnapped and they catch the guy. In his confession, he says he only killed the one girl in Alaska, but was going to take 2 more lives. He was at the same park I would go to and had his sights trained on a couple fooling around or whatever, and was about to pull the trigger until a cop showed up, and then everyone left. Now, I don't know for sure if it was me he had the gun trained on, and I'll never know. But there was something about that odd feeling that night.